brilliant at what he does.
And he's very good at what exactly. So if you're going to have an inaugural podcast category,
and you don't have.
It just speaks to living in the blue sky bubble.
Yeah.
But get out of your fucking bubble, you know? I want to be one of you. I am one of you. But you're just so hard to defend because you're just so fucking smug assholes. And this town is the epicenter of the problem. It really is. I just got a Golden Globe nomination for the one I did.
Oh, really?
That's yesterday.
How often do you get nominated for your specials?
Nothing. I used to get nominated for everything.
Yeah.
And then the wokeness came in, and then I was considered conservative. Which
are you bad?
Ridiculous. So I was what I call soft cancel.
Bill Maher has now turned his fire on Hollywood, and the reaction has been explosive. This time, his criticism isn't aimed at politicians or activists, but at the entertainment industry itself, the same industry that prides itself on shaping culture and defining what's acceptable. Maher argues that Hollywood has become obsessed with pushing woke messages, often at the expense of storytelling, honesty, and common sense. In his view, what started as an attempt to be inclusive and socially aware has morphed into something rigid, preachy, and wildly out of touch with everyday audiences. Maher doesn't hold back. He says Hollywood no longer reflects society. It lectures it. Films and TV shows aren't allowed to simply entertain anymore. They're expected to instruct, correct, and morally scold viewers. Characters feel less like real people and more like walking talking points. Nuance gets flattened. Complexity disappears. And anyone who questions this trend risks being labeled regressive, ignorant, or worse. According to Maher, the industry has mistaken fear for virtue, confusing compliance with progress. What really frustrates him is the irony. Hollywood believes it's leading the culture forward, but Maher argues it's actually driving people away. Box office numbers are down, audiences are tuning out, and viewers increasingly feel talked down to rather than respected. Instead of asking why people are disengaging, studios double down, blaming the audience rather than examining their own choices. Maher sees this as arrogance disguised as enlightenment, a refusal to accept that people don't want to be lectured when they sit down to watch a movie. His broader point is simple but devastating. Culture doesn't change because it's forced. It changes because stories resonate, characters feel human, and ideas are explored honestly. When art turns into ideology, it stops being art. Maher isn't arguing against diversity or inclusion. He's arguing against laziness, fear, and groupthink. Against a Hollywood that's more concerned with checking boxes and telling the truth. And if the industry doesn't course correct, he warns, it won't just lose credibility, it'll lose its audience altogether.
I want to do something next year about celebrities, not to get too political, but they just make it worse.
Your whole career.
No, I mean with you guys. They just make it worse. Celebrities do when they speak, and they're almost always on one side of the political divide.
Yes,
and that's basically the side I vote for. You know, as I always say to my woke friends, we voted for the same person. You're just why she lost. I could gather, and I think I will because it'll be funny. Just the incredibly stupid things that celebrities say about politics or finance or something.
Yeah, we're bad.
And then, so if you're like the person out there going, well, how can you live on $100 million a year? Vote Kamala Harris. That's the game over.
MR takes a sharp swipe at celebrities who casually endorse presidential candidates without ever bothering to weigh the facts or understand the political landscape. While he openly admits that he voted for Kamala Harris, Maher says he believed from the start that she was headed for defeat, arguing that her refusal to draw a clear line against the increasingly unpopular woke movement left her vulnerable to voter backlash. According to him, this reluctance made her vulnerable to voter backlash long before Election Day arrived. MR repeatedly warned both the candidate and the Democratic National Committee that ignoring public frustration would cost them dearly, but his concerns were brushed aside. Instead of listening to uncomfortable truths, party leaders chose reassurance over realism. Meanwhile, Hollywood celebrities flooded Kamala with glowing endorsements, confidently predicting an easy victory. MR argues that the celebrity echo chamber created a dangerous illusion of momentum, one fueled by applause, social media praise, and moral posturing rather than honest voter sentiment. In the end, he says, reality hit harder than any red carpet endorsement ever could.
I can't let the country in the hands of these people. I'll vote for this guy who's crazy, but at least this kind of crazy, I can almost relate to him more.
You can't have movie stars and politicians that we know have hundreds of millions of dollars lecturing you. It's just the elitist thing that came out of all that, the Democrats. It wasn't a positive thing. They are not going to do that in 2028. I'll bet they'll have regular
He's
people.
so thoughtful sometimes.
He's very smart about this stuff.
Dana Carvey is making the case that Hollywood may finally be learning a hard lesson about political endorsements, especially when it comes to backing Democratic candidates. After the last election cycle, he suggests celebrities might think twice before jumping in again, because the results showed just how little influence star power actually has with everyday voters. Instead of swaying opinions, many of those high-profile endorsements seem to land with a thud, exposing growing disconnect between Hollywood activism and the realities most Americans live with every day. Carvey's criticism cuts deeper than just bad strategy. He argues that celebrity political preaching often feels tone-deaf and even arrogant. When wealthy entertainers, surrounded by security, luxury homes, and private jets, tell regular people how they should vote, it doesn't come across as caring or informed. It feels elitist. For working-class voters struggling with rising prices, public safety concerns, and job insecurity, that kind of messaging can sound like a lecture from people who will never feel the consequences of the policies they promote. According to Carvey, this top-down moralizing doesn't build trust. It breeds resentment. Instead of inspiring voters, it reinforces a belief that political and cultural elites are out of touch and dismissive of ordinary concerns. Voters don't want advice delivered from red carpets or award stages. They want leaders who understand what it's like to worry about rent, groceries, and neighborhood safety. Until celebrities recognize a gap and stop mistaking fame for credibility, Carvey believes their political influence will continue to fade, not because people are cynical, but because they are tired of being talked down to.
Oh, you
I just got a Golden Globe nomination for the one I did.
Oh, really?
That's yesterday.
How often do you get nominated for your specials?
Nothing. I used to get nominated for everything.
Yeah.
And then the wokeness came in, and then I was considered conservative, which
are you bad?
Ridiculous. So I was what I call soft canceled.
Yeah.
Where you don't
Well, I'm a Bill Clinton liberal, which is from the 90s, which is now called a Nazi.
Exactly, right.
Yeah.
You're a white supremacist.
So this is the first time in a while I've been nominated for something.
Okay.
Which I think shows a little bit that we are coming out of the wokeness. I mean, I'm not going to win, and I'm probably not even going to go, but I take it as a victory that they were not able to ignore how good that special was.
Maher has been unusually candid about what it cost him to step out of line in Hollywood. For years, he says, he was labeled soft-ankled simply because he wouldn't swear loyalty to the woke crowd. Before that shift, his comedy specials were regular fixtures during award season, earning nominations, praise, and industry attention. Then something changed. Once he started openly questioning progressive dogma, the recognition quietly disappeared. No dramatic ban, no public feud, just silence, fewer invites, less attention. A slow fade from the spotlight. According to Maher, the message didn't need to be said out loud. If you don't fall in line, you don't get rewarded. What bothered him most wasn't losing trophies. It was watching how quickly others adjusted their behavior. Comedians who once pushed boundaries suddenly played it safe. Jokes got softer. Topics got narrower. Everyone learned where the invisible lines were and stayed comfortably behind them. Maher kept doing what he'd always done, questioning, poking, refusing to self-censor, even as award season rolled on without him. He says he understood the trade-off. Silence would have been easier. Compliance would have kept him popular. But that wasn't the job. Now, with a cultural mood shifting and the grip of woke politics loosening, Maher finds himself back in favor. His recent Golden Globe nomination doesn't feel random to him. It feels like proof of how the industry actually works. Hollywood doesn't lead culture, he argues. It follows it, loudly, when the wind changes direction. So do the gatekeepers. What was once treated as unacceptable suddenly becomes brave again, as long as it's safe to applaud it. Maher's story isn't about bitterness. It's about consistency. He didn't disappear because his work got worse. He disappeared because his opinions became inconvenient. And now that those opinions no longer carry the same risk, the doors are quietly reopening. Credit where it's due. He held his ground when bending would have been rewarded. He took the hit, waited it out, and kept talking. In an industry driven by trends, that kind of stubborn independence is rare, and that may be exactly why it's suddenly being celebrated again.
It's not one that the woke can watch and not throw up, because I call their shit out and the fact that people are laughing shows that it's funny. When you do stupid things, it's funny. And the left did a lot more stupid things in the last 5 to 10 years. And I'm a comedian. I go where the gold is. And it's hitting the side of a barn to make fun of some of this shit.
Sure, it's too easy.
If you think, I quoted like very esteemed publications like The Atlantic or saying things like, separating sports by sex doesn't make sense. Well, if that's not of course it does. If anybody can't do 5 minutes on that,
Yeah.
or Mr. Beast, who was helping disabled people, and the Washington Post guy was tweeting like, he thinks disability is something that needs to be solved.
For the last several years, BillMaher has been under non-stop fire for refusing to fall in line with the dominant woke narrative. Critics assumed the pressure would eventually corner him, that he'd soften his tone, change his material, or quietly retreat to avoid becoming a target. Instead, he did the exact opposite. Maher leaned in. In his most recent comedy special, he devoted a large portion of his time to openly challenging the far left, calling out its excesses with the same bluntness as always been known for. While others carefully dance around controversial topics, Maher walked straight into them without flinching. That choice wasn't reckless. It was calculated courage. Maher knows how unforgiving the entertainment industry can be. Careers don't always end with scandals or announcements. Sometimes they just quietly disappear. Invitations stop coming. Doors close without explanation. He understood the risk and went forward anyway. While many comedians chose a safer path, editing jokes, avoiding hot-button issues, or apologizing preemptively, Maher refused to dilute his voice. He didn't rewrite his material to make it more palatable. He didn't issue clarifications or walkbacks. And he certainly didn't apologize for questioning ideas that had suddenly been declared untouchable. The contrast is striking. As backlash culture intensified, a lot of once bold comedians pulled back, prioritizing applause over honesty and safety over substance. Maher took the hit instead. Whether people agree with his views or not, there's no denying his consistency. He kept saying what he believed even when it cost him professionally and socially. In a comedy landscape increasingly shaped by fear and self-censorship, that kind of resolve stands out. Today, real defiance in comedy isn't about being edgy for shock value. It's about refusing to be silenced. And by that measure, Maher has shown a level of backbone that become increasingly rare.
There's a podcast category at the Globes.
Oh, really?
No, you know what someone said? I thought they were kidding.
Oh,
I would think you...
did we get nominated?
No.
We're defending
Wouldn't you have
champions,
known it?
Maher and his guests didn't just raise an eyebrow at Joe Rogan's absence from this year's Golden Globe podcast nominations. They treated it like a flashing red warning sign. 4 years, the Joe Rogan Experience has been the undisputed heavyweight of the podcast world. It routinely tops global charts, reaches tens of millions of listeners, and shapes conversations across politics, culture, science, and entertainment in a way very few media platforms ever have. Its influence, reach, and staying power aren't debatable facts. They're industry benchmarks. That's exactly why Maher finds Rogan's omission so implausible. In his view, there's no serious argument that this was about quality, relevance, or popularity. Those boxes are objectively checked. Instead, Maher suggests the real issue is ideological noncompliance. Rogan's crime, as he sees it, is refusing to stay within the approved lanes, questioning progressive orthodoxy, hosting guests across the political spectrum, and occasionally pushing back on woke talking points that much of Hollywood treats as sacred doctrine. Maher argues that award institutions increasingly function less like neutral arbiters of excellence and more like ideological filters. Voices that reinforce preferred narratives are elevated and celebrated, while those that complicate, challenge, or disrupt them are quietly erased from consideration. No announcements, no explanations, just absence. Rogan doesn't need awards to validate his success, but the snub exposes something deeper about the system itself. According to Maher, this is how cultural enforcement works now. It's subtle, bloodless, and polite on the surface, but the message is unmistakable. Alignment matters more than merit. The danger, he warns, is that awards stop reflecting reality and start reflecting conformity. When the biggest, most influential voices in a medium can be ignored simply for ideological reasons, recognition turns into a loyalty test. At that point, Maher says, it's no longer about celebrating excellence, it's about policing dissent.
He's absolutely brilliant at what he does.
And he's very good at what, exactly. So if you're going to have an inaugural podcast category,
and you don't have...
It just speaks to living in the blue sky bubble. Yeah. But get out of your bubble, you know? I want to be one of you. I am one of you. But you're just so hard to defend because you're just so fucking smug assholes. And this town is the epicenter of the problem. It really is.
Maher doesn't hold back. He launches into a blistering critique of Hollywood, accusing the industry of locking itself inside a self-reinforcing liberal bubble that grows tighter by the year. According to him, studio executives, award committees, and celebrities have become so insulated from opposing views that they no longer even attempt to engage with anyone who challenges their worldview. The moment dissent appears, conversation stops. Instead of debate or dialogue, Maher says disagreement is met with silence, exclusion, or quiet punishment. No public bans. No official blacklists. Just doors that suddenly stop opening and invitations that mysteriously disappear. Over time, that culture has transformed Hollywood into an echo chamber where agreement is rewarded, conformity is praised, and disagreement is treated as heresy. He points to Joe Rogan as the clearest example. In Maher's view, Rogan wasn't sidelined because he lacks influence, relevance, or talent. Those claims are impossible to defend given Rogan's massive reach and cultural impact. He was sidelined because he refuses to fall in line with woke ideology and won't submit to approved narratives. That independence alone, Maher argues, made him unacceptable to Hollywood gatekeepers. And that's the larger problem. In Maher's eyes, Hollywood no longer values open conversation, intellectual curiosity, or genuine diversity of thought. It values conformity. By shutting out voices like Rogan's, the industry isn't safeguarding progress or protecting culture. It's exposing just how detached it has become from millions of Americans who don't think, vote, or speak exactly the same way as the coastal elite. Maher's warning is simple but sharp. When an industry punishes disagreement instead of engaging with it, it stops leading culture and starts preaching to itself. And once that happens, the disconnect isn't just ideological, it's cultural, social, and ultimately self-destructive.
But the thing about the Oscars is they do reflect society. That's why we pay so much attention, partly. And things are always changing in our industry, like streaming. You know, it just changed the whole industry. This happens so often. So they have to come up with new categories for the awards. The Golden Globes came up with a new one this year that basically a picture people liked. They had, they had become such self-congratulating, virtue-signaling bores that they had to go, oh yeah, let's make a category for that. People actually paid to see something great. So
yeah, this is classic Maher, sharp, mocking, and zero patience for nonsense. He tays into what he sees as the woke movie industry's growing habit of prioritizing online activist pressure over actual storytelling, craft, and artistic risk. In Maher's view, Hollywood no longer asks, is this good? It asks, will Twitter be mad if we don't do this? He argues that studios and award bodies now bend over backward to appease activists by inventing categories and standards that celebrate symbolism instead of substance. Maher points to the introduction of categories like the picture people liked as the clearest sign of how far things had drifted. He mocks it mercilessly, saying it sounded less like a serious artistic honor and more like a participation trophy, something designed to soothe feelings rather than recognize excellence. For Maher, this isn't harmless fun or harmless inclusion. It's cultural dilution. Awards that once stood for excellence, innovation, and lasting impact are being watered down in a desperate attempt to stay relevant and avoid backlash. Instead of raising the bar, Hollywood keeps lowering it, reshaping prestige around whatever the loudest online voices demand that week. He warns that this constant virtue signaling doesn't elevate cinema or make it more meaningful. It cheapens it. When everything gets an award, nothing actually matters anymore. Prestigious honors turn into hollow gestures, stripped of authority and respect, because they are no longer about achievement. They are about appeasement. Maher's underlying point is brutal but simple. Art thrives on courage, risk, and honesty. Once an industry starts handing out trophies to avoid offense rather than to celebrate greatness, it stops honoring art and starts performing morality. And in the long run, that doesn't make movies better. It makes them forgettable.
So there's some Oscar categories. Would you like to hear the Oscar categories? I knew you would. I knew you would want to hear them. For example, this was needed. Best editing of a film that's still an hour too long. Achievement in ethnic prosthetics. Best achievement in replacing an actor who tweeted something offensive. Best use of a freeze frame, followed by the words, "You're probably wondering how I got here."
Maher then turned his attention to Hollywood executives, unleashing sharp mockery through a series of biting parodies aimed squarely at the Oscars and the Golden Globes. He jokingly invents exaggerated woke award categories, mirroring what he believes the industry has already become. The humor lands because it feels uncomfortably close to reality. These sketches aren't just cheap laughs. They are deliberate satire, designed to expose how hollow and performative many of these accolades have become. Maher argues that awards once meant to honor excellence in filmmaking are now diluted by ideological box-checking and moral signaling. Merit has taken a backseat to messaging. By parodying categories that prioritize virtue over value, Maher underscores how little these trophies actually represent anymore. In his view, Hollywood has replaced genuine achievement with symbolic validation, turning prestigious ceremonies into self-congratulatory spectacles. When every film wins for something, nothing truly stands out. And that's the deeper frustration behind the jokes. When everything is an award, nothing matters. Meaning is traded for approval. Standards are sacrificed to avoid offense. Through humor, Maher drives home a blunt truth. Prestige without principle is empty. His message is unmistakable. Hollywood, he argues, has lost its way. Obsessed with ideology, approval, and virtue signaling, the industry now rewards conformity instead of creativity. Dissenting voices are sidelined, risk-taking is discouraged, and hollow accolades are handed out to maintain the illusion of moral superiority. Maher's relentless critiques, sharp satire, and refusal to fall in line expose an entertainment culture increasingly terrified of disagreement. Whether it's calling out celebrity activism, mocking empty awards, or defending free expression, Maher stands as a rare outlier willing to challenge the system from within. Love him or hate him, his commentary resonates because it taps into a growing public fatigue. Audiences are drifting away from Hollywood's echo chamber, and Maher's warning looms large. When art becomes activism and applause replaces honesty, credibility collapses, and no amount of trophies can save it. And that brings us to the end of today's video. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.